Let me, before we go on, let me give you a first cut at this distinction between physical versus objective, physical, which is another term for objective, versus risk-neutral probabilities. And I want to do it by analogy. So I want to, for a moment, pretend that I'm a bookmaker at a racetrack for horses. And I'm going to keep this extraordinarily simple, but it will convey the idea. So in order to keep it simple, I'm going to imagine a 2-horse race. So there's horse A and there's horse B. And I'm a bookmaker, right? I'm in the business of trying to make money regardless of which horse wins the race. Bookmakers are kind of like mortgage bankers. They're in the business of the origination fees, right? Not in the business of taking the risk associated with the outcome of the race, in this case, or the outcome of the home value in the case of the mortgage. So to keep things simple, I'm going to assume that this particular bookmaker does not post odds before receiving bets, which is clearly not realistic, okay? And we can talk a little bit about the risks associated with posting odds, at least initially. So the way this bookmaker is going to operate, and I'm going to assume that everyone cooperates with her in this regard, is that she collects bets for horse A to win, and she collects bets on horse B. Let's suppose that she collects $3 on that are bets on horse A winning, and she collects $2 that are bets that horse B will win the race. And once she's collected all the bets, she announces the odds. And of course, the odds are just the payout ratio. All right? And so, of course, what she's going to say to each one of these, and I'm going to assume as well that she's a totally benevolent bookmaker. So she does this, does this as a charity. She's been sentenced to community service, and this is how she's choosing to do it. So she goes to the folks who've bet on horse A, and she says, look, if horse A wins, I'll give you $5, right? So I'll give you $5 for every $3 that you bet on horse A. That's the payout ratio, all right? And of course, she's going to do exactly the same thing for the folks who bet on horse B. She's going to say, look, if horse B wins the race, I'll give you $5, right? So $5 for every $2 bet on horse B. That way she breaks even, she fulfills her requirements of community service, and everyone goes home happy. But that implies, well, based on that payout, there are implied probabilities of the horses winning the race, the respective horses. $5 bet in total, $3 on horse A. The implied probability that horse A will win the race is 3/5, which is 60%. So the probability that horse A wins the race is 0.6. The probability that horse B wins the race, which of course is just 1 minus the probability that horse A wins the race, because there are only 2 horses and they can't tie, we assume, is 0.4. So by looking at the betting, the flow of bets, you can infer probabilities associated with the outcome of the race, right? Now, these are the payout ratios that, or the implied probabilities that the bookmaker must stick to if she doesn't want to lose money. If she takes any bet other than this, if she offers a payout ratio other than this one, she may make or she may lose money. Now, in practice, of course, what she does is she doesn't say, I'll pay out $5. She says, I'll pay out $4.50. And that way she gets to keep 50 cents for herself. Right. Now, when she quotes these odds, she is entirely indifferent. She could care less which horse wins the race. It's of no consequence to her. She does not have to read God's mind. She just says, these are the odds, this is how I break even, or make my 50 cents, whatever the case may be. So there is no reason necessarily to believe that these probabilities reflect the true probabilities that govern the outcome of the race. So these are what we would call market implied or risk neutral probabilities. Why they're called risk neutral probabilities I'll get to later. Okay? But it may in fact turn out that the true probability of horse A winning the race is not 0.6, it's only 0.5. The bookmaker will never know that, and she will never care about that. The people making the bets, they may care about that. So that's just my first cut at trying to start in your mind creating this notion of why are there these two different measures of probability. So these are probabilities implied by prices. In this case, it's not so much a price as it's the weight of bets on a particular horse. But in some sense, this is precisely how financial markets work. Because when a financial market tells you that a treasury bond, a 20-year treasury bond trades at par with a 4% coupon, and a 20-year corporate bond with a 4% coupon trades at 80 cents to the dollar, it's reflecting precisely the same information that a bookmaker would reflect when she announces her payout ratio. It's a market, from that price you could work out a market implied or a price implied probability that the corporate bond will default. Okay, so that just as a first cut, if you like, and it's something we'll come back to over time. In this graphic here, we notice something that's important in credit risk, and this is when I said to you that there's really two components to credit risk. There is the probability of default, and that can change from time to time. You can imagine a company has a string of bad results. It loses money for a couple of years, and consequently its default probability ticks up. But we can also have a case where the market value of a corporate bond declines, not because the probability of that issuer has gone up, but simply because the market now demands, for some reason, a higher spread premium to compensate for the risk. And so if we were to pretend that Moody's were accurate in its rating of BBB bonds or BAA bonds, then you can see that from 1950 to 2010 and beyond, this I think goes up to about 2014, that the spread, the compensation that the market has demanded in order to, if you like, wear or be exposed to BBB credit risk has shown remarkable variability through time. Okay. Now, part of this increase in the bond yields here is due to the fact that the underlying risk-free rates have gone up. But it's not all explained by the underlying rate, because this is not a spread, this is just a yield on the bond. Okay. But if you were to look at the spread, you notice that the spreads have widened out as well. For example, we'll look at another graphic in a few slides where we'll see, for example, that during the peak of the financial crisis, or the worst, the depths of the financial crisis, perhaps is the right one, that credit spreads blew out again as well. All right? So that's the market demanding more compensation for wearing credit risk. And that matters. It matters to the way you build a risk model, obviously.